experience in that. So what is wonderful about this program is there is flexibility for this MS degree in both part and full-time enrollment. So classes are offered in the evenings. There's lab in the morning, but also in the evening to accommodate working students, for example. And some classes have online sections that allow you to complete it asynchronously, meaning at your own pace online without having to come into class. There are multiple opportunities to network and get involved. One feature, for example, we have a graduate bioinformatics biotech association organization that MS students are able to join. And there's over 400 other student clubs and organizations that you can take advantage of during your time on campus. Currently, the Cell and Gene Therapies program is only at our Boston campus, which is located in the heart of Boston. There's public transit right nearby that makes it very easy to get to and from campus. So if you live somewhere else, if you want to go see other things while you're here, go to different events, it is very easy to get around with the location of the campus. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to Sahar, who can talk more about the specifics of the program itself and the Master of Science degree that is presented.
Thank you so much, Miss Bible, regarding your introduction to Cell and Gene Therapy program. And thanks for everyone joining us today and for your time. So Master's program in Cell and Gene Therapy is a non-thesis degree that has an optional co-op position. However, you need the experiential working is required. One of the options is co-op that can be part-time or full-time anywhere in the global. And there are some other options that we are getting to them to discuss them. So Cell and Gene Therapy develop an advisory board comprised of individuals from the cell and gene therapies biotech industry who will make recommendations on course content and overall compositions of the program in order to ensure that graduates continue to receive the knowledge and skills to meet employers' needs, and they will be aligned with the demands in the field of cell and gene therapy. As you know, this field is growing at an outstanding rate, and therefore we have to monitor the industry and also clinical needs to make sure that cell and gene therapy is aligned with those requirements. Next slide, please. Cell and gene therapy is a field among the medical and healthcare field that is, as we mentioned, growing at an outstanding rate. And this is one of the modern personalized medicine that can be a promising technique and tools in curing the loved ones with the conditions that they were known as uncurable so far, like cancers, some of the genetic disorders that we only could manage the symptoms, but not able to treat them. Hopefully, with the field of the cell and gene therapy and techniques that is being innovated, we are able to treat those conditions. Next slide, please. In this figure, you can see that how cell and gene therapy master's program has been grown. We started in fall 2023 with only 11 students. And as of fall 2025, we reached to 70. And I can say that as of spring 2026, we are almost at 80 students. That means that there is this is hot among younger generation, obviously, but also it means that we need those people to fill the gap in industry or in clinical institutes, because nowadays that the cell and gene therapy is growing, now we need more and more of the experts that are experienced in this field, or they have the degree in this field, so they can able to help the field to grow and help the patients that they are suffering to have the quality life that everyone like us, they are enjoying the life. In the next slide, I want to compare the therapeutic strategies for genetic disorders, not cancer, but kind of we can generalize these to cancer treatment as well. In the left column, you see the gene therapy pros and cons. And then in the right column, you see the non-gene therapy approaches for those kind of genetic disorders. Number one is gene therapy is a curative approach, which means that we are hoping and aiming to cure the condition. If it is a genetic disorder or anything that the patient is suffering for the lifetime, with the help of the cell and gene therapy, we are aiming to cure those kind of conditions. However, in case of non-gene therapy, you can see that it is palliative. So far, we only were able to control symptoms and pain, but not necessarily helping the patient to recover from those conditions. That means that gene therapy can be time consuming and more expensive, but also that is correct that we have to spend time to develop the treatment, but it is a one-time treatment, which is the second difference between gene therapy and non-gene therapy approaches. Since it is a one-time treatment, we spend a long time to develop the treatment, but once it is done, then we are done with the treatment and we do not need to continue for the rest of the life for the patients. Because it is one-time treatment, sometimes we need to increase the concentration and dosage of the therapeutic reagents. And that's why that can be toxic and trigger the immune system of the patients. So that is an art to find the margin that it is the optimal concentration of the treatment to rescue the patients, but also not triggering the immune response as much as possible. On the other hand, can we really call non-gene therapy approaches they are less toxic? I don't think so, because imagine that a patient with a genetic disorder is taking the treatment for the lifetime, which means that they are exposed to those small molecules, those chemical medicines for their lifetime, and therefore their liver, their kidney is all the time filtering the blood from these chemicals. And that causes failure in organs such as liver and kidney, that they are filtering out the toxics. Imagine that a patient is taking steroids that are anti-inflammatory for the entire lifetime. And again, we really cannot say that if you are taking a medicine for the rest of your life, they are less toxic. The very last one, for the gene therapy, we can call them modern and personalized medicine, which means that we are hoping to develop a treatment specifically for a mutation in a gene that the patient is observed is basically having a phenotype because of that mutation. That means that it is very expensive. In contrast, for the non-gene therapy approaches that we can, for example, use aspirin for everyone, for the gene therapy approaches, it is not that case. So we only have to make for each specific patient based on their mutation and genetic screen. So that makes it more expensive. But for the non-gene therapy, again, we really cannot say they are less expensive. That's right. One single dose of taking aspirin is very cheaper compared to cell and gene therapy. But again, imagine that for the rest of the lifetime, you are taking that medicine. So again, it has costs and fees for the entire lifetime. On the other hand, for the cell and gene therapy, for those patients that they are suffering from genetic disorders, it is not only the treatments. Most of the times they need advanced care, they need some special devices, they need like early intervention or some other type of supportive supports for these patients that they can at least continue their life, which means that all these are adding to the cost of the treatments of non-gene therapy for the genetic disorders or cancers. Okay, so with this comparison, we understand that why gene therapy is important and why is it evolving rapidly nowadays in this decade. As of 2021, over 6,500 genetic diseases are known, and it continues to grow, which means that by discovering the mutations, we understand that there are more and more genetic disorders. Plus, we can add that nowadays we really can treat cancers, that sometimes they are not genetic disorders, but the mutation has happened later during the life. Or we also can treat autoimmune diseases. So this would add to those cases that can be treated with cell and gene therapy. The estimation is that a total of 1 million patients will be treated with gene therapy by the end of December 2034. In 8 years from now, 1 million patients are treated. The field is very expensive and it is very time consuming, but the number of the genetic disorders are increasing that we discover them, which means that we need more people to be expert in this field to be able to treat those 1 million patients by the end of December 2034. The very first clinical trial has happened in the US, like in 1990, and then it was suspended because of some regulatory approaches. FDA came up with more strict regulatory policies for the cell and gene therapy. And again, we can see that at a higher speed, the clinicians and scientists started to focusing on cell and gene therapy approaches and innovations. So we have learned that we need this field. The field is already there. The industry and clinical institutes are working closely together to treat 1 million patients by 2034, but we don't have enough number of people in this field that they are expert. We came up with this great business model to have the cell and gene therapy program at Northeastern University, which is the only and the first institute that is offering cell and gene therapy program. I have a lot of colleagues that nowadays they are working in industry in the field of cell and gene therapy, and they always come to me and they say that if we had the opportunity to have those employees with the cell and gene therapy degree, we could minimize the amount of the weeks and months to train the new employees. So that would be ideal to fill up this gap between what is the expectations in the industry and clinical institutes and what is available. We are trying to fill up this gap and prepare the next generation for this rapidly evolving field. If we want to take a look in a glance at how the cell and gene therapy looks like, this is only one example out of so many examples, but you can see the cell in the center is the one that is mutated. Therefore, we came up with strategies to make the viruses that they can transfer the healthy version of the mutated gene into these cells. In the top left panel, you see a cell that is transfected with 3 different plasmids to make the viruses. The viruses would be collected in a falcon tube. We centrifuge, spin down those viruses, and then in the top right figure, you see basically a flask with the cells that we need to modify them genetically. We add the viruses into those cells, and then in this zoom out in the center, figure in the center, you can see that the viruses, they sit on the cell, and then they encode the genetic material inside the cells. The genetic material, either they are DNA, so they go into the nuclei of the cells, or they would be, they are RNA, they would be reverse transcribed to DNA, which is the case here. The genetic material was single strand RNA. Using the reverse transcriptase, it becomes DNA molecule, and the DNA molecule integrated into the genome of this cell that has mutation. In this way, we are compensating the mutated genes with the healthy copy and the normal copy of the gene that we introduce to the cells. That is one example out of so many examples and approaches that are available right now, but we, in the cell and gene therapy program, we focus extensively on all these approaches to understand how the cell and gene therapy works. In this program, once you join us, there is a total of 32 total semester hours required that you have to take in order to be able to be graduated. You have to maintain a minimum of 3 GPA. You have the optional co-op program, but with the optional, it doesn't mean that there is an option that you do not take it. Instead, you can do another experiential working, but there will be some experiential working implemented in this program. If you are a full-time student, you take 2 to 3 courses per semester, and the minimum is 8 credit hours per semester. And if you are a part-time student, you can take 1 course per semester. There are the sample courses, the very top few courses. These are the required core courses. We start with the stem cell and regeneration to help you being prepared for the more advanced courses like cell and gene therapy and cell and gene therapy lab that we teach you how to do the transfection and gene editing in cells with on your own hand. So you practice the A to Z of the cell and gene editing in laboratory environment. We have the regulated landscape of cell and gene therapy that we explain what are the FDA's Food and Drug Administration in the US and EMA or European Medicine Agencies. They work closely together to have policies published in the hope that we can have safe and efficient treatments available for patients. Advanced drug delivery and applied bioinformatics, that in applied bioinformatics, you will learn how to design guide RNAs, how to measure the mutations, how to understand if there is off-target or on-target treatments, how to use the CAR T cell therapy, stem cell therapy. We teach all these bioinformatic approaches for the cell and gene therapy in this course. There are some elective and sample elective courses. One of them is CRISPR gene editing fundamentals and some other courses that are available, plus more courses that you can take a look on a cell and gene therapy catalog page to familiarize yourself with the courses that are available for you to take them. It is some of them, but not limited. You can take up to 5 credit hours elective courses based on your future direction. You can find that which courses from which college or department applies better to you to being prepared for the field that you are looking for. As we mentioned, this is a non-thesis program. Instead, we have an experiential learning, which is required. These are the options that are available. Either you do the co-op, which is paid. That is the good part of that. So you conduct the co-op, you are paid as an employee, and you are earning real world experiences, which is ideal. And I think it is the golden part of the program, since you can do the co-op in a cell and gene therapy company. And then you understand if you match your personality and your desire matches with those kind of roles, or if you want to, for example, rather than to being employed in a company that is doing the drug development for cell and gene therapy, or you want to do something in clinical trials, or you want to do the manufacturing part of the cell and gene therapy reagents or treatments. So then once you do the co-op, you can understand which of these future direction matches better with your interest. Or maybe you ultimately understand that I want to continue my education to higher education. So that would be lovely, because during these 2 years of the master's program, you took some courses that maybe you are able to do the credit transfer for your PhD or MD. And now you can minimize the length of the PhD program, since you have dedicated a couple of years for your master's program and you have a work experience. There are some other options like directed study, which means that you have to find a lab that they are doing, they are working in the field of cell and gene therapy. They would be your co-supervisor, someone from Northeastern would be your co-supervisor, and then you can conduct the research independently. Experiential AI capstone is another one, and also practicum is another option for you to do the experiential learning. Um, the co-op program could be in pharmaceutical, biotech companies, startups, academic or clinical research lab. As we mentioned, it really is beneficial for you to conduct the co-op program. It is paid. It is adding that to the classroom studies that you dedicate 2 years uh, to spending your time in the classroom. So now you can use those knowledge um, in practical and once you are doing the experiments. Exposure to career path. We have a great co-op team that they are helping you with polishing your job application materials, like how to write your cover letter, how to redefine your resume, how to apply and email people for increasing the chance of having interviews, and how to conduct the interviews while you are applying for the co-op position. So rather than doing all these things by yourself in a try and error procedure, there is a group of people very experienced that they are helping you to polish your applications and documentations and how to apply and increase their likelihood to be hired in this competitive job market. There are different type of length for the co-op. It can be 4 to 6 months, but it depends when you are starting the co-op, if it is during the summer or if it is during spring. Um, we already covered what are the benefits in between the presentation, but again, to review it, you gain interdisciplinary training in advanced therapies, cell and gene therapy, study in an innovative professional master's program, you gain industry-aligned skills and experience, so you will be the most updated students with the knowledge in the cell and gene therapy. And this way, with having the co-op team and with learning the theory of the cell and gene therapy, you enhance your chance to being hired and have in terms of your professional career, you have an enhanced chance. People who are graduated with the cell and gene therapy degree, with a master degree, they can be a research associate scientist in an R&D company, research assistant 3 in an academic or clinical laboratory, or clinical trial management in clinical and in regulatory institutes. There are tons of institutes and biotech, biopharma companies that are either 100% dedicated to cell and gene therapy, or they have an office that is working on cell and gene therapy, including Pfizer, Moderna, Novartis, Biogen, Editas, Bluebird Bio, that you probably have heard the name of a couple of them, especially during the COVID time. The Moderna and Pfizer company are those big companies that they have offices for cell and gene therapy as well. It is interesting to know that all these companies, they have their headquarters or one of their offices is in Boston area, which means that Boston nowadays is the largest biotech hub in the world. That is ideal for you to be in this neighborhood. You will be able to meet people. You will be able to attend conferences, workshops. Also, it is beautiful, as you can see it here. Today morning, me and a group of my students, we had a site visit for Saitiva, and we could see the company. They could give us a tour to see how they are working and what are the ways that they are helping the cell and gene therapy field, which means that once you are in this neighborhood, you have these chances to meet the experts in this field in person. You can email them and then take a bus or Uber and go to their office and have an informational interview. And this way is the best that you can establish your networks and know people and increase your connections for the time that you want to apply for co-op position or for your professional career. So this place is great for you to do your cell and gene therapy programs. Now I am going to hand it over to Ms. Bible to explain some of the frequently asked questions from your side.
Thank you, Dr. Tavicoli. So for one thing, thank you for coming to the presentation. Not quite done yet, but I did just want to share the application fee waiver code for the upcoming cycle. It is COS 2026. Again, COS 2026. I'll leave it up for just a moment so you can take a screenshot or write it down. Yep, I was about to say I'll put it in the chat later alongside other resources, but Dr. Tavicoli's got me beat. For the next thing, for when the registration period opens up after acceptance and application, um, there are even some scholarships just for registering or other scholarship information that will come to you from the admissions team. So keep an eye out for emails and communications from them regarding those aspects of the program or of the application process. For application requirements, you will complete the application at the how to apply portion of our College of Science website. Again, I will link that towards the end of the presentation. But what you need to provide, just to say out loud, the personal statement, transcripts from all of your institutions that you've attended, at least 2 letters of recommendation, an up-to-date resume and or CV, and if applicable, there is a proof of English proficiency requirement. Please check the site and/or the admissions process for the most up-to-date information on how to submit that as well. A GRE is not required for this program, but there is a prerequisite of some type of biology. Most students have some type of STEM undergraduate degree or experience, but this does not automatically disqualify you from the program. So again, if you are interested, please still apply. There are, as Dr. Tavicoli showed earlier in the core courses, there is a structure to the courses to ensure that all students are able to progress at an equal level and learn the information they need. The recommended minimum GPA is a 3.0, the same as you have to maintain through the program. Here are the deadlines for fall 2026, and if you're looking ahead a little bit, spring 2027. International students, your deadline is July 1st. If you have an F1 visa, July 15th, and then domestic students, your deadline is August 1st. For spring 2027, similar dates, international is November 1st, then the 15th. Domestic, your deadline is December 1st. It is rolling admission through these deadlines. So if you don't apply tomorrow or in a couple weeks, you've got the time to do so. And again, just to reiterate what Dr. Tavicoli said earlier, full-time is a minimum of 8 credit hours per semester. This does turn out to be about 2 to 3 courses, and we have a recommended progression once you are admitted to the program that you will be able to see and have access to, especially for registration purposes. For part-time, it does give that increased flexibility, but it does require at least 1 course per semester. There might be instances where you can take 2 if you have a 1 credit elective, for example, but this option is available only to domestic students. For financing your degree, the College of Science in particular does not offer financial aid to students, but like I said, scholarship information will come from the admissions office throughout your process. Tuition fees are paid by the semester, and all students are eligible for campus jobs, up to 28 hours per week during coursework, up to 40 hours per week during breaks. So one thing that we do have in our program, we have more teaching assistants. So that is something you can do here if you're interested in getting involved, but all on-campus jobs are eligible. There's the internal, you've probably heard of it, the Workday system to apply for positions. So that's what we use here. And I also know that there are some labs that might take volunteer work if you're more interested in that as well, but that does require being here, reaching out, and seeing what's available. And just to state this, because I know we get questions on this, a World Education Services report is not required for your application to this program. Just want to make sure that we got that here for those who need that answered. And again, I'll post some information in the chat shortly. But if you have questions about admissions, you can reach out to COS grad admissions at northeastern.edu. And for program-related questions, you're welcome to reach out to me at g.bibel@northeastern.edu. Get everything updated with a new last name as of late. So that is the correct email to find me at. But if you have questions, we would be happy to answer them. So you can put it in the chat. You're welcome to unmute, but I will step back as Dr. Technically will be able to answer many of them, but I'll jump in if needed. Thank you everyone for coming today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bible, for the great information in details. I just wanted to add that we are working hard to running online program as well, and primarily online. With the primarily online means that you can take most of the courses online. And for the online program means that if you are not living in Boston area and you are, let's say, somewhere in the US, then you can apply for the online program and take all the courses asynchronous online. So if you are not based in the US and you are a domestic student, that is something that you may consider.
Any
Yeah,
questions? Oh, did
I'm
I
going
hear
to
someone?
start recording so people feel more comfortable to um, ask their questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
We have a question in the chat, Sahar.